Hey, how's it going? In this video, I'm gonna be taking a look at waste to energy and plants and what those plants are. A lot of information to cover, so let's start with perhaps better understanding of what those plants are. Waste energy plants are facilities that convert solid waste into energy, typically in the form of electricity and or heat. The process involves the combustion of waste material to generate energy, and it's considered a form of renewable energy because it utilizes waste that will otherwise be disposed of the landfill. So basically, they're burning it, combustion, right? So they're burning it, and by doing that, I'm not entirely sure what they're releasing to atmosphere, right? So they're perhaps. So I'm not supporting anything. Well, if anything, I'm trying to understand everything, as well as I'll finish this video with an example of what's happening in the world with some of the governments of that. Feedstock waste to energy. Plants primarily use municipal solid waste as their feedstock. So it's something that they're using as a sort of energy, like I don't know, wood or petroleum or other products might be as a feedstock, something that they would use. This includes household waste, commercial waste, and or industrial waste. So there's different types of waste out there. Step 2, combustion process. The waste is burned into in a controlled environment, usually in combustion chamber. The heat generated during combustion is used to produce steam for water. And okay, next one, steam generation. The steam produced is the used to drive a turbine connected to a generator, converting it to thermal energy into electrical energy. Electricity generation, the number 4, the generation produces electricity that can be fed into a power grid for disruption of the consumers, for distribution for consumers. Number 5, heat recovery. In some cases, this energy type plants incorporated heat recovery systems to capture and utilize the heat generated during the combustion process for district heating or industrial process, increasing overall energy efficiency, as well as depending on the climate, right? So, what kind of governments are we talking about? Some of those governments can be very cold, but either way, emission control. VTE plants are equipped with advanced emission control technologies to minimize the release of pollution into atmosphere. These technologies include scrubbers, filters, and or other pollution control devices. So they do have some measures. So if anything, I don't know how good they are, but they do have some measures there. Number 7, residue. After combustion, there is usually some residue ash. This ash may contain metals and or other materials that need to be properly managed and disposed of in the environmentally responsible manner. It should, okay, so either way, environmental impact. While waste to energy can contribute to reduction of a landfill used and provide a source of renewable energy, it's important to address concerns related to air emissions and the potential for toxic byproducts. Advanced technologies and strict environmental regulations aim to minimize these impacts. As well as I can think about some countries over there who are struggling with overall space, if anything, some island countries, right? So there's some islands up there who not necessarily have enough space, so they might use all kind of residue to increase space, real estate that they have. Number 9, waste reduction. WTE can be used as a form of waste management that complements recycling and other waste reduction strategies. By converting waste into energy, it helps to reduce the volume of waste sent to landfill. So if you yourself might be interested in solving this particular problem, landfill, right? That waste. So some of the materials up there would which would end up in a landfill, how long it would take for those materials to stay in that land field in the first place. Number 10 and the final point would be waste to energy. It's implemented in various countries around the world with the different levels of adoption and technology sophistication. Some of the countries use WTE as a significant part of their waste management and energy strategy. So some of the countries perhaps has a large adoption compared to other countries, right? From there, we can progress into perhaps China, right? But not necessarily limited to China, but China recently opened world's biggest incineration plant. So it's something that they have done. Shanghai has completed the expansion of the Liaogang Renewable Resources Recycling Center. The incineration power plant is the largest of its kind and capable of processing around 2.7 million tons of waste per year. Oh, that's a lot of waste, if anything. I do understand a little bit, I guess. It's probably worth mentioning now than later. So, China is exporting a lot of products, right? So, a lot of containers are going from China into other countries, right? So, when that happens, they prefer to bring something back with those empty containers just because export is larger than import, if that makes sense, right? So, they're exporting a lot, and they, instead of bringing perhaps empty containers, they would prefer to bring something, right. There was a lot of incidents that happened about they deciding what they would like to bring. Right? So sometimes they don't mind to other countries don't mind to sell a lot of waste materials, all kind of materials, right? And China itself perhaps would consider finding best use cases, how we can use that waste, right? Sometimes they would recycle some of those materials, but some of those materials perhaps not necessarily 100% recycle, as well as those countries or organizations who recycle or sell that waste not necessarily use the best standards when it comes to percentage of what would be agree on a contract. So perhaps some of those countries would agree within a ton, right, of cardboard, right? It should be. It depends, right? Things are always changing, but put things into perspective, right? So perhaps 50 kilograms or even less, 5 kilograms should be byproduct within the cardboard, right? Within the ton. Sometimes that's pretty standard, right? But sometimes it can be off by a lot. It depends, right, of practices within the different governments when it comes to recycling of materials, right? So if they're sending a lot of materials, they might bring back something, and some countries would sell their waste and they might bring some cardboard, but it depends on a lot of things, right? But that can be the way how things can operate, right? And then different businesses can try to find but different use cases, to say the least. Perhaps they instead of not bringing anything, they would bring waste, which they would get paid for, as well as they would use that as an energy source. Okay, let's come back to some of the information that are available. The upgraded waste to energy plant was opened last Friday. It can generate up to 1.5 billion kilowatt hours of power, while the slag byproduct from the burned waste can be recycled into building materials. Shanghai, the largest city in China with more than 26 million people, generates over 20,000 tons of waste every day. This represents about one third of the volume that can be processed at Liaogang. So I don't know if this is the plan to, that what they're doing. Some of the practices might change all the time, but that's my understanding. What they're doing with some of those shipping containers might as well bring something, right. But perhaps they would operate this particular plant slightly different. If you dump all of your garbage generated by the residents of Shanghai in one day into Hong Kong football stadium, it will pile up to a 27 meters high hill, says Wu Yunhang, chief engineer at the plant. But after treatment, we can reduce this to only 2% of its original waste and 1% of its volume. So the problem that we're looking to solve, a very specific problem, right? The incineration site is a part of Liaogang solid waste complex, which covers 29.5 square kilometers. This makes the biggest solid waste treatment based in Asia, and it has processed over 27 million tons of material since it became operating in 1989. Shanghai authorities have announced plans for more waste treatment facilities in the near future. For example, 41 temporary large-scale garbage storage stations and 8,000 waste storing and recycling stations will be built by 2020. So it's all information about what's happening myself. I'm trying to understand the best way to process or waste byproduct or something that people don't really need. What would be its life cycle? And since there's a lot of funding opportunities available up there right now, some of the places where I'm looking, that would be Wales currently, and they're looking to life cycle of packaging, right? So what would be the best use cases where you can potentially put some of those packaging materials, but perhaps there would be a different use cases, not necessarily producing energy. Just something myself I'm interested in understand a little bit better. But some information I'm looking up there, that's some of the articles online, that would be 2019, so some time ago, right? If you're interested in learning more, I have published a journal, Inkflow. That's a quarter. That should be enough time for you to develop a habit. Hopefully, what would help you to reach your targets, become more effective, productive when it comes to setting targets, achieving those, as well as if you were to pick up this journal, I would highly recommend to work from cover to cover. That should give you enough time to develop yourself, as well as, if anything, try to understand a little bit more when it comes to time, 24 hours, and optimizing those 24 hours. Within every window, within every page that you would turn, I have identified particular areas that you would need to focus on. That would be, for example, health metrics, personal goals, as well as professional goals, learning, physical activities, time management, just to name the few. You can find it in QR code in the corner or the website below. I just come back. If we were to come back to this article, that would be also starting 1st of July. That's an article written in 2019. Residents must sort their trash according to wet, dry, recyclable, or hazardous labels on the bin. So it's slightly different comparing to, again, to the region where some of the people are living. Other countries in Europe, UK, they're sorting the trash, the rubbish, slightly different. So I'm interested in understand a little bit better about the ways how other people are doing, right? Over the last few days, however, people have struggled with the mandatory system. The government has created an app to handle inquiries. It has also hired 1.7 or 1,700 sorting instructors and or conducted 30,000 training sessions to help citizens recycle. So it's a perhaps it's a problem, and it sounds like a lot of people, but we're talking about perhaps millions or tens of millions of people that they need to work with when it comes to addressing some of those issues. But then it comes to organizing people, it seems like they do their best. Either way, China aims to take the waste sorting scheme nationwide by 2025. So they looking to improve some of those areas. If anything, perhaps I would myself more looking to understand and track about some of those governments and how they're performing instead of governments tracking its citizens, I guess. Either way, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.